Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday. We're going to get started here shortly for the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show. We are adjusting. My guest, Adrian Villacorta, will be on next week.
Well, it's about that time. The Rutledge Perspective Radio Show coming your way this morning at 10 a.m. Central from the historic KCOH TV radio station, The Boost, at the corner of Alameda and Wichita in Houston, Texas. Come join me because we're going to chat about leadership and showing up and getting aligned and getting clear, and taking action and voting and voting and voting and all of that stuff. So join me for some great conversation and a few laughs. And then when we're done, be sure and head over to your favorite podcast platform or to my website, laurelrutledge.com, and subscribe to my weekly podcast, the Rutledge Perspective Podcast. Episodes drop every Wednesday, and they are short and sweet, commute-worthy. And I promise you'll get something out of every one that will help you shift your perspective. Because when you shift your perspective, you shift your circumstances. See you soon.
That was a cool commercial, if I do say so myself, y'all. My guest, Adrian Villacorta, to talk about AI will be on next week. So he got caught up in all that stuff that's happening on the East Coast. So he was traveling back and got stuck in Buffalo. So he will be here next week, and we'll be talking about all the AI, what you do as an employer, all the stuff that's going on. So we'll be talking about that next week. So be sure and tune in next week again. Tune in every week because I love to have you here. But tune in again next week for sure to see Adrian and to talk about the challenges that we're having and the things we're doing right now with AI and ChatGPT and all the AI platforms and how we're working on those. Yeah, because it's moving fast. And I just saw an article. Actually, one of my attorneys posted this article where someone just did a study and said, yeah. And his comment was, yeah, it's turning more human. That there was when ChatGPT first started, they were getting 98% of like math problems right. Now it's down to 2%, right? Because again, it's learning. Artificial intelligence, right? It's machine learning. It's learning from people. So if people are getting things wrong, it is learning wrong stuff. So that's just a good indicator of AI is a tool, but you still need to be verifying stuff, right? So anyway, so we'll have Adrian on next week. And then today we're going to be talking about endurance. So for those of you who are just joining or haven't been on the show before, my name is Laurel Rutledge. I'm the host of this show, the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show, live here on KCOH TV Radio, The Boost Global Network in Houston, Texas, on the corner of Alameda and Wichita in the historic 3rd Ward. And in our historic station with the looking glass window, the Today Show ain't got nothing on us, y'all. We got our own looking glass window out here on the world in Houston, Texas, in this heat. So we are here and we are live, and I'm so glad to have you here with me. So before we start talking about endurance, Ohio, come on, Ohio. Today is actually voting day, Tuesday the 8th. This is the voting day to make sure that you guys keep the simple majority in Ohio. To get things passed, right? Simple majority so that everybody's vote counts, that it can't be gerrymandered, it can't be suppressed, it can't be all that stuff, simple majority. So go out and vote. You want to vote no on that referendum, right? So go read it. Make sure you're paying attention to what you're voting for. August the 8th, today's the day. If you didn't early vote, go vote today. It's a great day to go vote. Everywhere else, make sure you're registered. We've got lots of things coming up. You know, people think that nothing goes on except in November, right? Every 4 years. And that's not true. So we have things going on right now. Recall elections, special elections, replacement election, right? All these things. And by the way, the Tennessee 2 won their spots back. So they are back in Tennessee. They are back in their seats. So they won their special elections that had to happen. So they were reappointed and then they had to run again and they won their seats back. So it's a good day. So go get registered, y'all. Your voices matter. Your voices matter. We've got to be paying attention to what's going on. We see what's happening. And in Houston, Harris County, come on, y'all, right? Because now that we've got an official school to prison pipeline that has just been done by the new superintendent appointed for HISD. Go look at his record, y'all. He was asked to leave Dallas. He was asked to leave Colorado. right? Go look at what we really got here. Someone who is getting rid of libraries and turning those, and librarians, right? Resource people, and turning those into detention places. Come on, y'all. What does that mean? That means all of the people that look like me, all of those children, school to prison pipeline, right? Just got solidified in Harris County because you know what? We have this big old blue dot. Pay attention. And that's all about local elections. That's local elections. That is state elections. Your voice matters. Your vote counts. Pay attention. Pay attention, right? You see what's happening in Florida. Now you see what's happening in Texas, right? This stuff is happening everywhere. And you know what? We're just not going to have it. So I need y'all to get registered and to vote. We got to do better. We got to do better. All right. Let's talk about endurance today. One more thing. The Freedom to Vote Act has been put back on the docket in Congress, right? And that includes expansion of automatic voter registration, right? And same day voting. It includes protection for election workers. It includes a prevention of gerrymandering for any political party's favor, right? So it is bipartisan supported, right? The Freedom to Vote Act has bipartisan support, right? It's fixing gerrymandering. It's protecting elections from fraud and from foreign interference. I mean, there's some good stuff in this bill, y'all. And it has now been reintroduced. So call your congressman. Call your congressman. We need to make sure that this gets passed so that we protect everybody's right to vote and we eliminate this ability to suppress the vote, right? All right. So let's talk about endurance. And here's the definition of endurance. The definition of endurance is the fact or power of enduring an unpleasant or difficult process or situation without giving in, right? Going through an unpleasant or difficult process without giving in. That's endurance. If you think about endurance runners, right? They're running those long distances. They call them endurance runners because at some point your body's like, you've got to be kidding me, right? But you endure. You keep going, even in the face of pain, even in the face of difficulty, you keep moving. That's endurance. This came up because we still hear, and I still hear, and I'm sure you do, we still hear a lot of conversation, rhetoric, thoughts around being resilient, being persistent, stay in the course, being disciplined, being consistent. And all of those things are true, right? We need to be able to rebound from things, come back from stuff, right? Not be taken completely off course by something that's difficult. But what we don't talk about is endurance. What we don't talk about is the fact that situations are hard. They're difficult. If you are in a company, and we all went through the pandemic, that was hard, right? We had to endure that challenge of that like rapid overnight change to the way we lived our lives. Endurance is critical in the pursuit of success because there are going to be difficult times. There are going to be seasons where it is just hard. There are going to be seasons when it is painful, confusing, when you're thinking, what am I doing? I'm in one of those, right? I'm in one of those seasons where I'm like, what, right? Just really, I don't even know, right? Can we just get a break? Can we just have something go just smooth for just a little bit? I'm not even asking for a month. If I could just get a couple of weeks where things just went smooth. But we have to figure out how to endure. We have to figure out how to keep going. Again, it's different than discipline and persistence, right? And resilience, getting back up after something happens. Endurance is about being in the moment and getting through something really, really difficult without giving up. Digging deep into whatever that thing is that is making life kind of crazy, and just pushing forward. And I use that push word cautiously, because sometimes we get caught up in pushing and hustling and grinding and all that kind of stuff, and we start judging ourselves because we're not getting what we want, so our hustle isn't as good as somebody else's, or whatever the thing is, right? We got to be really careful about not putting ourselves in positions where we're all judgy about what's going on for us and for other people, right? We got to be mindful of that. And yet, if we are going to accomplish anything we set out our mind to accomplish, if we are going to make an impact, if we are going to lift ourselves up and lift others as we climb, right? We have to be willing to endure some difficult things. Many of us are enduring difficulty right now. The family of Henrietta Lacks, who just settled their lawsuit finally for the HeLa cells that have been used for decades, that were gathered without Henrietta Lacks' permission and have been used to discover treatments for cancer, among other things, right? They just settled. They endured that fight for years. Years. We are in a time period of need for endurance. There's so much coming at us. There's AI. There's even Zoom. I think I read yesterday was an article. Zoom is actually requiring people to start coming back into the office. Of all organizations, Zoom is saying you can't be at home and do this, right? We're starting to move back to what made folks comfortable. We're starting to move back to what was old normal. And yet we've got this tension between what we knew and what we learned, and how to marry those two so that we can take advantage of the positives of both and the learnings about the negatives of both. The negatives of these 50, 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks that we were enduring, 2 and 3 and 4 hour commutes that we were enduring, right? The stress, the lack of sleep, all of the things, meetings all day long. So you really didn't have time to do work until the day was over. All of those things, the past normal, to the new normal of, do we even need a meeting for that? Can we just meet by Zoom? I don't need to commute, right? On this day, I have these things, so I can just get up and start working, and then I can come in later in the day if I need to come in, right? That flexibility that we gained, that understanding of the power of flexibility and the impact of that flexibility on increased productivity. Those things we learned, right? We endured and are enduring a pandemic and the aftermath of that pandemic. Which, by the way, be safe out there, y'all, because COVID is back, at least here in Texas. That enduring is a requirement. Good morning, Camille. Good morning, Dr. Cynthia. It is a requirement. It is a requirement to allow yourself and to support yourself to push through difficult, problematic, challenging, unwanted situations. Now, if you are unsafe, that's something different. I just had this conversation with Dr. Kamani on Sunday night. So I'll be posting the link to that on my social, so you can go listen to our conversation. We had a great time in this conversation, but we were talking about that whole idea of, you if you are unsafe, you need to move. You need to just quit. Yeah, don't allow yourself to be in a situation that's unsafe. If it's not unsafe, then make a plan, right? Don't hurt yourself because you're mad at them. Don't, just make a plan and then move. And even in doing that, what kind of conversations are you having with yourself that are honest and open and forthright about the environment in which you are operating? Is it you or is it them? Is it a combination of both? right? There is no shame, no harm, no difficulty in saying, "Oh, let me go back. What did I do? What was my contribution to this situation that I'm in?" In fact, there's power in that. And if you are open and honest about that, then you can see where, oh, you know what? Maybe next time I'll do something different. The challenge is when that crosses over to always blaming yourself or thinking you are the cause of everything that happens, because that's not true either, right? Those extremes, always, everyone, everything, right? Those big absolutes are what start to cause a problem. And by going back and understanding what was your contribution, it actually supports your ability to endure a difficult situation. How? Because you're able to get out of emotion and move in facts and experiences and situations for what they are, not for how they feel. Because when we're in our feelings, we're responding emotionally. And we need to honor those emotions, right? We need to understand them. We need to recognize that emotions are powerful and they're real and they're great indicators for us of where we are and what's going on, right? They're great uh, indicators of our nervous system and how we're feeling, right? Our safety mechanisms. And emotions aren't always true, right? It's a really strange combination of endurance where you have to honor your emotions, understand that narrative that you're being told, and then decide, is this narrative true? Because here are the facts, here's how I feel, but is what I feel based on something that's true, or is what I feel based on something that my nervous system is made up, right? Now, sometimes, as my friend Sabrina says, your head's a lie, but your body's never lie. Your body never lies. Your head will. I know for me, with my therapist, right, I can think myself out of anything. So she's always like, but what does it feel like, right? What does it feel like? Because I can think my way into, out of, around, over, through anything. Logic is not an issue. But managing those feelings and the narratives that create those feelings or that underlie them or that force them to happen, that's where the power is. And that's where your endurance is so important. Because if you can dig deep into the power of sitting in a difficult situation and seeing it for what it is and what it is doing to you, what it's doing around you, and stay in that long enough to be discerning to make an intentional action, the impact of that on you and on your ultimate goals is going to be so much better. If you can find a way to endure, if you can find a way to stand in that power, to find whatever that is that grounds you, to say, this is absolutely painful. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this, but I'm going to keep pushing. And again, I use that pushing cautiously, not pushing to the point of injury, pushing to the point of danger, not that kind of pushing. But if you can allow yourself that strength to plant, right, to stay in the game, to stay invested, to keep moving through that last 20 minutes of that workout, to do that last 10 reps, to swim that last 50 yards. To see Dr. Cynthia on there, and she's on her swimming game recently. That endurance, right, enables you to get somewhat grounded and be a little bit more clear and logical about what you want to do, what actions you want to take. If you can move through the difficulty of the situation, you can be more mindful and more intentional about where you're using your resources, time, energy, money. And you can move through emotion into action, into intentional, empowered action, right? Endurance is something that we build up. Endurance is something that we build up. It is something that I am working on again, is getting consistently back into my routine, right? With COVID and all kinds of stuff, right? Getting getting the workout in. And I have a rower at home and I love to row. It is one of the most difficult, right, cardio exercises, but I love it because it's a full body workout. You don't have to do it for 4 hours, right? Um, it's a lot. And it takes a long time to be able to row for extended periods of time. It takes a long time to get there. And in order to get there, you have to endure the pain and discomfort of rowing because it is absolutely full body. You're using your legs, you're using your back, you're using your arms, you're using your abs, right? You're using your shoulder, you're using your entire body to pull and move that machine, right? Your hiney's going numb, right? Your hands are getting tired because you're gripping the handles. But if you endure, the positive impact on your cardiovascular health, on your body movement, right? On the strength of your muscles is unquestionable. It's unquestionable, right? Getting your heart rate up, making sure that you can move quickly and move easily, doing your warm down or your cool down afterwards, right? Getting some mobility in because that kind of rowing can also lock up your quads, right? Lock up your hips. But enduring that pain enables you to get to your goal. So one of the things that I am working to get back to is increasing the rowing. One, getting consistent. So I'm doing it every day like I was doing because, again, I love it. And it's a habit that has to be developed. To just get up, roll out of bed, just get on the road. Don't even think about it. Don't think about it. Don't question it. Don't ask. Like it's that automatic routine. Up, rower, up, rower, up, rower. Right. And the challenge when we get out of habit is that we know the pain of starting over is real. I'm not going to be able to row 5,000 meters when I haven't been on my rower in 3 months. I'm not going to be able to row that 10,000 meters. I'm not going to be able to row that 20 minutes out of the gate when I have been sitting on my hiney for 3 months, or maybe doing a row once a week or so. It's not going to happen, right? Not without some serious pain and potential injury. Endurance requires that we practice. Endurance requires that we start, and that every time we do something, we do just a little bit more, that we push through the wall of discomfort to keep going. If you are running an organization and you're at that tipping point where you're getting to the next level, you got to push through that discomfort of hiring more people, of getting processes in place, of going back and looking and seeing what didn't work, what did work. How do I move some things? Having difficult conversations with people who may not be the same folks who can get with you to the next level. But if you are focused on building, creating, supporting, impacting, right, the goals you have set for yourself, you will find a way to endure the discomfort and the pain. You will build those muscles that say, this is really painful and I hate it. And I see the power of getting there. I see what's on the other side. And so I'm going to give myself the gift of just pushing through this pain. I'm going to do an extra 2 minutes today, not 20 minutes, but I'm going to do just an extra 2 minutes. I'm just going to keep going. I am going to make that call today to that person that I know needs my help. I'm going to make that call today to my banker. I'm going to look at my financials today. I'm going to have a meeting with my team today because the corporation has decided to do something and my team is a necessary part of that and they are already overworked, but I'm going to have that meeting today so that we can all get on the same page and we will be able to endure together this period of time that may be more painful than we're ready to admit. But by deciding to push through any barrier as they come up, you build your endurance, right? You're building that armor. There's a reason they say, you know, the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire, and iron sharpens iron, right? You want to butt up against those barriers that are difficult. And sometimes you got to go around them or over them, but sometimes you got to push through them. And that pushing through that barrier is what builds your endurance. It builds your resistance. It builds your strength. It builds your courage. And it gives you data and information to learn how to maintain that level of endurance and go the next step. Build even more. Because the more you try to do, the more places you try to go, the more things you want to accomplish, the more endurance you're going to need to have. Leadership has a serious endurance component related to it. You can't be an exceptional leader if you don't have some level of endurance. Because leadership is hard. Leadership is not for sissies. Because leadership is about people, right? It's about behavior, not about position. Leadership requires that you endure some crazy stuff. Meetings where you get sidelined. Times where folks take your idea and take credit for it. Meetings where you are actually called out, called upon, put down publicly, and where bad behavior is supported in your presence. Endurance is seeing that stuff, recognizing it, and continuing to move through it to the extent that it continues to serve the ultimate goals that you have in place. And when it doesn't, having enough focus to endure the time it takes to create an effective plan of action. Again, if you're unsafe, you need to move. But if you're not unsafe, you need to endure that planning process. Stand strong, get quiet, get focused, understand that people will show you who they are, believe them the first time, and just know that. Know who you're dealing with, and then move and act accordingly. You don't have to tell everybody what you're doing, why you're doing it, where you're doing it. Everybody doesn't need to know all of that, right? That is not necessary for your success, and it's not necessary for your ability to endure whatever you're going through. But what is necessary is for you to have a level of strength and confidence. And if you don't have both of those, just have a desire to achieve something that enables you to endure, right? Thank you, Camille. That enables you to endure, right? It is about knowing the difference between pushing yourself through something, right? And pushing against something that doesn't serve you. Sometimes we push against all kinds of doors, right? There's a saying that's like that Fawn Weaver uses. She is the founder and CEO of Uncle Nearest Whiskey. She's incredible. I'm still not giving up on having her on one of my shows. She's incredible. Just graduated from Alabama because it was a commitment she made to herself years ago. And she talks about her box me in prayer, right? And in that box me in prayer is to, if it's meant for me, open the door so wide that no one can close it. And if it's not, close it so tight that I can't open it. And if it's so wide, keep enduring, keep pushing, keep moving. If it's meant for you, it is going to happen. And in that endurance, be mindful, be open, and be aware. Endurance is not about just blindly pushing. That's not endurance. Endurance is being really clear about what you're trying to achieve and being so clear and so confident in it that you are willing to get information that says you need to do something different. I'm going to say that again. Deep confidence in your goal actually makes space for information that says you need to change up. You need to redirect, right? Because if you got the end goal in mind, the how will take care of itself. You can go all different directions to still get to that end point. And that endurance to get there, if you're truly focused on that goal, if you're truly focused on enduring to get to the end, that endurance is also what supports you in shifting and making a little drift to the side and taking a break and stopping, letting some other things pass you by, and then getting back in the race. Endurance is about keeping going, but it's not necessarily about never stopping. See what I mean? The difference? It's keeping going, but not necessarily never stopping. Because sometimes we got to pause, because there is power in that pause. Go back and listen to my podcast called Power in the Pause, right? There was a power series. Practice the pause. Endurance requires pausing. These endurance runners take breaks, right? These triathletes and these Ironmen who are competing in all this stuff, in order for them to have the kind of endurance that they have, they take a break. They let their muscles rest up. They let the fibers reconnect and build back up, right? When you break something down, you got to give it time to build back up. Endurance doesn't mean never stopping. Endurance means stopping intentionally and with a plan. That's endurance. And when we are trying to accomplish something, when we are trying to move to something, yes, it's important to be resilient, to be able to bounce back from the setbacks. It is important to be disciplined. It is important to be consistent. And all of that supports your ability to endure the ups and downs. Because if anyone tells you that the ups are easy, I need you to rethink that. Because sometimes the ups are harder than the downs. The downs, at least you're kind of starting over sometimes, right? It's like, well, that didn't work. Let's just try something different. When we're in an up, we get so focused on being up and we don't ever want to lose the up that we sometimes get sidetracked. We get focused on not losing as opposed to focused on continuing to move or continuing to gain. Those are two different things. Being focused on not losing is different than being focused on positive winning. It's a mindset shift. It's a perspective. Not losing is about scarcity. Not losing is about pain. Not losing is about fear. Focusing on where you're trying to go and continuing to do everything you can to win is about opportunity and possibility and positivity. It's about enduring the pain to get to the promise. It's about staying connected and focused and aligned and giving space for fatigue, giving space for rebuilding, giving space for rejuvenation, right? It's easy to think about it in terms of sports or activity because we hear that all the time. We hear about the need for endurance all the time, right? But what we don't hear people talk about when they're doing that is the recovery period. You got to have some recovery period. There's a trainer, Kaija, who does a lot of movement. I look at some of her stuff and I'm like, oh, I really want to be able to do that. And then other stuff, I look at her and say, I'm not doing that. My knees hurt just looking at her, right? I don't need my body to do that, but I do need my body to be able to move and to move effectively, especially as we age. You need to be able to get up and down off the floor easily, right? Without always gripping on something. Those are important things. Movement is important to the aging process, right? To aging gracefully and to health. You got to be able to move to be healthy. And to be able to do that, to be able to increase flexibility and increase movement, you've got to endure some pain of getting there. And I know this from somebody who has no flexibility. My flexibility is not non-existent. So I have to work really hard at ensuring that I am doing the work, right, to get that flexibility and keep that flexibility. And I have to endure lots of pain to do that. Physical pain, neurological pain, right? With some of the exercises that we do, the R series exercise that really connect brain, right, and body. I have to work hard to move through that kind of stuff. I have to endure the discomfort. I have to endure the disappointment and the frustration and the irritation at myself that I took off 3 months and didn't do what I was supposed to do. Because, see, nobody did that to me. I did that to myself. I took the break. Now, we also need breaks, right? We need those pauses. We need those times to rejuvenate and renew. And we can get in a habit of not being consistent. We can get in a habit of not being disciplined. Discipline with a little d, because discipline with a big D is judgy. We can get in the habit of being out of habit. And that means that we have to have more endurance to get back to where we were, much less exceed our last achievement. Right? Endurance is consistent. Endurance happens all the time. We just tend to focus on persistence. Just be persistent. Just bounce back. Just be resilient. Endurance isn't judgy. Endurance doesn't cast dispersions on your aptitude and your attitude, because endurance just is. You either endured it or you didn't. You either had it in you or you didn't, right? It's just facts. Endurance is a place that enables you to achieve goals that you've set. It's a place that enables you to lead others to get there. Because I'm telling you, endurance is a requirement to lead well. Because you got to endure a lot of stuff when you're talking about people. Their pain, their emotions, their aptitudes, their attitudes, their expectations that may or may not be reasonable. Organizations that may not have their words and actions aligned, that are more focused on shareholders than stakeholders, that support leaders with bad attitudes and bad actions and punish those who are just trying to do the right things, right? There's a lot to endure when you are in leadership. And in order to endure it, you got to stand strong in who you are and what you believe and what you know you bring to the table about your experience, about your expertise, right? Your values, understanding where your values and the values of your organization disconnect and making an intentional decision about whether or not that's something you are willing to tolerate or not. And in your tolerance, is that tolerating as it is or tolerating it so you can change it from the inside? And if you want to change it from the inside, you got to endure the pain of it being ugly, nasty, misaligned for a minute. And if you are focused on the outcome, your ability to endure that madness is greater. It's greater because endurance takes lots of energy, endurance, focus, right? We have to figure out a way. Let me rephrase that, because we don't have to do anything. Well, we do a few things. It is incumbent upon us to figure out a way to endure the chaos around us in order to harness that chaos for good, in order to harness that madness in support of the goals and outcomes. Endurance is about an achievement, an outcome, a destination. Endurance is about something, not just the endurance itself, right? Endurance is an accomplishment, right? It's an achievement to say, wow, I made it through that 400-mile trek, right? I think about what's popping up in my mind is David Goggins and those extreme runs that he used to do. I don't think he does them as much anymore. I read his book, and I was like, I can't, SEAL training, Ranger training. I mean, all the things that are just impossible, he did. The running through the desert, the hiking up the mountains, y'all, right? And the endurance in and of itself is an accomplishment. And he even found out, if I don't take the time to rest, if I don't take the time to recover, I'll be all balled up, like literally. He found himself unable to move. And that's when he started actually adding to his endurance the recovery process, stretching, right? Relaxing. Those things that allow the muscles to recover, allow the muscles to elongate again, allow the muscles to rebuild. Because at some point you got to stop and give yourself a chance to recover. At some point the body's going to say enough, enough. At some point your mind and your spirit are going to say enough, especially if you're in a toxic environment. At some point, if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. And I'll say, if you don't make time for your endurance, you will be forced to make time for your injury, mental, physical, and emotional, right? That endurance, building up those muscles, is what enables you to do great things for people, for yourself and for others. It allows you to make an impact. It allows you to get through things with a different mindset and different perspective, that it's just a moment. And that moment is not a full story of who I am or what I'm trying to accomplish. That's what endurance is, right? We're going to do some shout outs here in a minute for those of you who are watching. And thank you so much, Dr. Cynthia and Camille, for tuning in on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And for those of you on YouTube, I cannot see you, but thank you for tuning in today on the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys who are all around the globe listening in here shortly through some shout outs. I don't know why this ended up being such a revelation for me, and I hope it was a revelation for you guys as well. I so many things come to me, they just come to me, right? But this one about endurance hit in a way that things haven't in a while. And I think it's because words matter, right? Y'all know how I feel about words and how we talk about things, how we talk about ourselves, and how we talk about others and situations. And this whole idea of the fact of enduring something that's difficult, right? Endurance is about difficulties. Endurance is about painfulness. Endurance is about hard, uncomfortable, right? It's also about not giving up. That's what endurance is. And I got to tell you, if you're an entrepreneur, and like I said, this last month or so for me has just been it's just been something. And that endurance, that ability to keep pushing through, that willingness to seek support, whether that is your tribe, your ride or die, like me, my therapist, everybody in it. Critical if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. And it is not easy. It is not easy. We have those moments, and sometimes those moments are weekends. Right? Welcome back, StreamYard. That endurance and that willingness to give yourself space to say, in this moment, I'm struggling. In this moment, I know I've got clients who are relying on me, and it is so much easier to help someone else sometimes than it is to help yourself. right? In this moment, I just don't know. In this moment, I have doubt. In this moment, I am having a hard time not just saying, forget it, it's too hard. In this moment, it is a chore. It is a chore in this moment. It's a struggle. It is painful. And I don't know that I want it in this moment. That's real. That's real. And endurance means you acknowledge that, you acknowledge those emotions, you honor those emotions. If that means you have to sit in those emotions for an hour, a day, an evening, try not to sit in those emotions for weeks and months at a time, because people need you and you have a mission to fulfill. You have things to do. You have people who need you, right? You have people who are relying on you to make some amazing things happen with them, and sometimes for them, and sometimes despite them, right? So try not to allow yourself to sit in it too long, to get back to that idea of enduring the difficulties. And even if you can't figure out how to do it for yourself, remember that your story of endurance is what someone else needs to hear to get to theirs. Your story of endurance is somebody else's uplift, somebody else's aha moment, somebody else living through your testimony of triumph, right? Endurance is, yes, about you, but your story of endurance is for those who need you, where you can serve and how you can serve. Endurance is bigger than you. Endurance is bigger than you, right? Endurance is truly, truly about sitting in some patience and some grace, knowing it's hard, knowing it's difficult, but knowing without a doubt that what you're doing is what you are meant to be doing. And therefore, you can push through whatever that thing is, right? Push with a little p. You can push through. That's critical. That is critical to be able to do that, right? All right. Let's do some shout outs really quickly as we show our appreciation for your enduring my little technical difficulty. For those of you who are following me on StreamYard, I'm determined, y'all, to have this technology work on a more consistent basis.
We have the Bahamas, Mexico, France, Germany, Brazil, Finland. We have Freetown, Rome, Johannesburg. We have Helsinki, Frankfurt, New Orleans, Raleigh, Atlanta, Jacksonville, New York, Lynchburg. We have Philadelphia, Kansas City, Washington, and Houston.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, guys. Good morning, Maria Elena. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I love it when you're here. I love it when you show up. I love it that you spend this time with me. It is not, I don't take that stuff for granted, y'all. I really don't, because we all have choices in how and when and where we show up. We all have choices in how we do that. And I'm so appreciative that you make a choice to spend some time with me. That's just real. And I know a lot of folks are like, you say that too much. I've actually had that comment. Why are you always thanking people? I've actually had that comment. I'm like, because they have a choice in whether or not they want to show up to me. That's why. That's why I do it. Because I really mean it. I mean, thank you. So thank you. So as we get ready to kind of wind down in this last 10 minutes of the show, I want you guys to think about how you can reframe your story. How you can reframe this idea of resistance and resilience and persistence and pushing and all the things into enduring and endurance, and that building up of capability with an open mind, with a set of open eyes to see what's coming, with a willingness to allow for recovery, a willingness to stop and pause, a willingness, right, to be in the moment, a willingness to say, you know what, this is hard. I've been on here for 10 minutes. I said I wanted to do 20, but maybe I'll just do 10. And to say, no, one more. I'm doing 1 minute at a time. 1 minute at a time. I was watching this show. My family was in town this weekend, and we were watching a show. I cannot remember his name. I think it was Jeff Jenkins. He's a travel person, and he is a larger guy. He's a big guy, and he travels all over the world to experience things and to challenge himself. And he says he does it for other people who are wanting to travel, but who may be reluctant because of their size or they've never been anywhere or whatever. And he's got a fear of heights and some other things. And this particular show that we were watching, he was in Vietnam. And he did two things there that I saw that I was like, ooh. One was he hiked up to this really top point, and it was 443 steps, I believe. Now, this is a big guy, 443 steps. And it was up like a really kind of narrow staircase, y'all. And he made it. He made it to the top, and he's like, this view is so amazing. I'm so glad I did this. And I kept pushing, and I kept saying to myself, one more step, one more step. He said, and then I was looking at my camera guys, and my camera guys are here. They're hiking up with these big cameras, and some of them are hiking backwards so they can get a front shot, right? And then the next thing he did, which my whole body was like tingling, y'all. He did this sky bridge. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a suspension bridge, like way up above this culvert. And all of the little, it was like they'd sawed logs in half. So it was like those half circles. They had all, and it was the round side that was up that you were walking on, not the flat side. It was the round side. And they'd been painted all these pretty colors and all that. And they had lines strung on either side, like handles on either side. And you were tied off, like they had a bunch of carabiners, right? You were tied off. And as I watched him, someone who's afraid of heights, so like me, I don't have a fear of heights, but I have a fear of falling. So I can't like be on the edge of the Grand Canyon. I watched him walk across this suspension bridge. And he was saying the same thing to himself. Towards the end, he got like halfway there and literally you could see his muscles were just frozen. And I've done that before. Like I hiked up, to the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico, or started hiking up to the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico. Couldn't do it, right? To the steps, and I couldn't. So we went to a smaller place, hiked up to the top because it was a smaller pyramid. But coming down, my muscles were so tight. Literally, y'all, I couldn't walk the next day. I couldn't stand up. If I sat down, I couldn't get up. My muscles had been seized up that tight. So I was watching Jeff walk across this bridge. And in the middle, he grabbed the ropes, and I'm looking at these ropes going, they are not sturdy enough for me because everything is like this. And he froze in the middle. And because you're in the middle, whether you go back or go forward, you got the same distance, right, to go. And finally he said, and the woman who was his guide was like, you can do it, you can do it. And finally he said, you started hearing him say, one more step, just one step, one more step, just one step, just one step, just one step. And he made it. He made it to the other side. And he endured that pain, that fear, that uncertainty, right? Because again, this is a big guy. And even though they're saying, no, it's fine, you'll be fine, there's got to be some concern. I know even for me, I was concerned as well when I did zip lining. I don't ever have to do zip lining again, by the way. Once was enough. I can say I did it. That fear that even though they tell you those cables carry tons, like they could carry 10 elephants, it still feels like you weigh personally 10 elephants and the cables aren't going to hold you. That endurance that he showed to get to the other side, to be able to demonstrate to other people, to tell the story to other people, to demonstrate to them what was possible. That's why he endured that pain, that fear, that discomfort, that uncertainty. Riding on the back of motorbikes in Vietnam, right? In Hanoi. He endured because it wasn't about him. Yes, he gained something from it as well, but his endurance story wasn't about him. His endurance story was about what he was telling other people, what he was demonstrating to other people. It was about possibility. It was about possibility. And so as we wrap up today, that's what I want you guys to think about. When you talk about enduring and you think about the story that you're telling, the business you're trying to build, the department you're trying to support, the career you're trying to build, all the ups and downs, the disappointments, the things that people say that they're going to do and they don't do, right? The failed commitments, the downright lies, the lack of integrity, the folks that are really looking hard to make you fail, not just happy to see you fail, but they are actively working to make you fail. Your endurance not only puts you in a place that shows you what you've got, that gives you strength, that shores up those stories in your head that says, I can't, or I'm not worthy, I'm not worth it, I'm not capable. But you don't know who is watching you endure that situation, who needs to see that it's possible. And leadership is about behavior, not about position. And when you're enduring those crazy places and people are seeing you do that, they see that they can too. So remember, think about endurance differently. Endurance includes recovery. Endurance includes pausing. Endurance includes giving space to get additional information to understand what it means and what you're going to do on the other side. Endurance is power. Endurance is power, and endurance is painful, but it's so worth it, right? Because the thing about endurance is it just keeps going. You get to that 1 mile, you made it. You do 2 miles, takes you a while to get that comfortable. Then once you're comfortable, you got to get to 3. So you step up your endurance again. Keep pushing. Somebody is waiting for you to show up. It may be dark right now. It may be painful right now. It may seem impossible right now, but keep showing up. Keep showing up. Endure the madness because you will be happy that you did on the other side. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you globally around the world for being here with me. Thank you for those who are in my LinkedIn, who were on my YouTube, in the Facebook group, all of that kind of stuff. Thank you for being here. I really and truly appreciate it. Share this. The recordings will be up. So share this. It's up on my YouTube channel, The Rutledge Perspective. So you can go to youtube.com/@The Rutledge Perspective, @The Rutledge Perspective, and get to my YouTube channel. And this replay will be up there. So share this with someone who may be struggling with enduring some challenging times right now, because none of us gets through this life alone. And if this can help somebody, then please share it. Take care, everybody. I will plan to see you all next week. Happy Tuesday. Have a great rest of your week. Bye. People have no idea.